Hello, welcome to PD in your PJs. This is hands-on training to get started with Seesaw. Thanks for taking time out to join us today. First thing to note, this is an interactive session. That means we want you to have a second device ready. That might be a cell phone with the Seesaw app installed on it. It might be a Chromebook, it might be an iPad or a Kindle next to you that is ready to go. You can also go to app.seesaw.me on your second device and join that way as well when we get to the portion where we're actually interacting with a Seesaw class that I've set up for us here today. So if you have never joined a webinar, welcome. And this is just a great time to really dive deep into getting started with Seesaw. You will hear me talking, and if not, you can reconnect and check instructions in the email that you receive for how to join via phone even. But after this webinar, you are going to get the recording and slides automatically emailed to you because you registered for this session. So no worries on that. If I'm moving too quickly, which I sometimes tend to do because I get excited, you can always watch this video again and check out the slides. So this is brand new to Seesaw for pre-K through second grade teachers. I really call this part one because this is just the beginning of starting with Seesaw. You don't need to know anything at all about Seesaw to be here today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Seesaw, talk a little bit about the features. You are going to get to experience Seesaw as a student today. We'll talk about tools, classroom ideas, and our getting started guide as well. But I really want you just walk away excited to get started in your classroom. So a little bit about me, I'm Angela. I taught kindergarten for 15 years in a 5 iPad classroom with about 24 students. So if you think you can't use Seesaw because you're not, one-to-one devices, totally works in all environments. I now lead the community team here at Seesaw because I was so passionate about what Seesaw provided my students in my classroom. You can connect with me on Twitter at Mrs. Gadke. So a little bit, let's just jump right in. So Seesaw, this is a flow of Seesaw. So you can begin with students creating posts. Teachers approve those posts before they go anywhere. They are organized in the student's journal or portfolio. Families are able to see their own child's work. So those conversations and connections grow between things happening at school and those conversations happening at home. So why I love Seesaw, I feel I could go on for a while, but these are some of the main things when I reflect on why I love Seesaw and why you might consider starting it. Because I think obviously we need to have purpose behind everything we're doing in our classrooms. So here's a couple just keywords that stick out for me: voice, visible thinking, ownership for students, reflection, creation, organizing all sorts of digital creations, and also all those hands-on creations you do in your classroom, strong communication between home and school, authentic feedback for students, and these visual updates really cross language barriers as well. Seesaw works on all of these different platforms. So it's not only for iPads, it's not only for Chromebooks, you can use it on multiple devices. So what we're gonna do in a moment is we are going to experience Seesaw as a student. So this is the point you're going to want to grab your second device and just have it next to you. You don't really need to do anything with it quite yet. I am going to walk you through and model the process here like a true kindergarten teacher. So hang in here with me. So if we want to just peek inside a Seesaw class right now, just so you can kind of understand what it looks like, on the right, you'll notice here, there are the list of my student names in my class. Each student has their own learning journal, and that's where their content is kept. That's where they add it. On the left here, you'll see a feed of all of the work that's coming into the class, and you as a teacher can see all of that work as it's coming in. Now today when we join our class, it's going to look a little bit different because I don't have all of your names in the class. Instead, I just use the letters of the alphabet. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as we get going. So, but first, before we even jump into Seesaw, one of the first tools I love to talk about is the photo tool, which is a built-in camera in Seesaw. It's kid-friendly, really great for younger students. When you're using photos in Seesaw, you'll notice under at the bottom here, you'll notice all these blue tabs. Those are all things you can do on top of a photo, like record voice, you can draw on it, you can add labels, you can even type a caption. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump in right now. So I wanna just let you know, if you are already using Seesaw, you might be signed in as a teacher. We're not gonna do that today. So we are going to be a student. So what I need you to do, if you are already signed into Seesaw, is in the upper left, you are gonna tap your profile icon and then the gear icon and sign out, because we are going to be joining the class today as a student. So I'm gonna, again, walk you through these steps that you'll take on your second device. So here we go. If you are on an iPad, Android, or Kindle, it's gonna look a little bit like it does on the left. We are going to be tapping I'm a Student after you tap the Seesaw class app. On the right, if you're joining us via the web on a computer or Chromebook, you'll just go to app.seesaw.me and again, tap I'm a Student. So you can do that part right now. And then what will happen is you will notice that a QR reader pops up. You might also get a warning that says, allow your camera, allow your microphone, say yes, yes, yes to all those things that might pop up at you. But this QR reader is actually built into Seesaw because we have a QR code that we're going to scan that unlocks the class, lets you in the class. So we are going to do that in just a moment. So here is the QR code. So you can actually scan this code right now. Once you have tapped the Seesaw app and tapped I'm a Student, go ahead and scan this QR code. I'm gonna sit here for just a little bit so you have plenty of time to scan this QR code. Again, we're using the QR reader that pops up after you have tapped the Seesaw app and I'm a Student. You'll notice this QR reader pops up and you're all set to go. So if you are watching the recording, you can also scan this. If you're watching it later, you can scan this and play along as well. The QR code will still work. I also want to remind you that we are adding content to a class that is visible to anybody globally. So of course, just like in your classroom, we want to check our digital citizenship before adding, content to our class. I'm going to move off this slide for a moment, but the QR code is still going to be on other slides here. So you are going to tap the journal that matches the first letter of your name. So I'm Angela, so I would tap the A. That's going to signify that I'm going to be using that journal today. This is a class that multiple teachers have used in previous sessions of this webinar. So you're going to see content already in that journal. But go ahead and just tap to let the device know who you are. And if you are on the web or on iOS devices, you're also going to notice on the left here is kind of what it looks like. If you're on a mobile device or a phone, it's going to look a little bit like on the right. We are going to tap that green add button. That kind of unlocks the magic and takes us to all of those great Seesaw tools. So you should be doing this along with me here. We're tapping that green add button once we get in our class. And now I'm going to walk through these steps for you, and then you're going to get a chance to do them. So you don't have to try to keep up with me at this point. I'm just going to show you. So you're going to tap the photo tool, and you can take a selfie if you like, or show us a picture of your view. Maybe you're on a beach somewhere, or climbing a mountain, not sure. So you're just going to tap photo, take a photo, and then in the upper right, you're just going to tap the green check, signifying that, as I told my kindergartners, I'm done with that part. After you tap the green check, your post is going to be added to our class after I have approved it as the teacher. So there's no worry ever that it's just automatically going to go somewhere that you're not expecting it. It always comes to you, the teacher, first. So here are your steps to do your first Seesaw entry. So go ahead. We should have already tapped that green add button. So you are now going to tap photo, take a photo of your view or take a selfie, tap that green check and tap that green check again, and you will have added your first post. I'm going to pause for a minute here so you can actually do that, and then we'll peek inside our class. Okay, so I hope you're all with me here. We're going to check in live with our class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this classroom right now as a teacher. So the exact class that you have been adding content to, I hope people are playing along with me here, that you have been adding content to, I am now logged into as a teacher. So you'll see here on the bottom, there's a big red bar that says 12 unapproved posts. That's the work that you have submitted to me. So as a teacher, I'm going to tap review because I want to look at all of your, oh, look at this, how fun. All of your amazing work that's coming into this class. Look at all you great continual learners. I love it. You'll see here, again, this is the feed of the entire class at this point. I'm the teacher, I can see all of this. Our class is actually set up too so that all students can view everyone else's work because this is a collaborative space here today. You can of course change that in your class settings however you want to. This looks great, so oh, popcorn, love it. So I can approve these one at a time by just doing that green check mark. Or if if it's something inappropriate or I think it's not quite ready to be approved, and I want my students to maybe redo it, I would delete the item. But these look good. I'm going to tap this button down here, this big green button, and approve all of this work so I don't have to tap each one by one. And I'm just going to give you free reign. You can just keep adding stuff to our class and playing around as we're going through this webinar today. And we'll kind of keep checking back in. Again, because I have this set up that everyone can view each other's work, you can kind of see everything that's been added. But right now, let's go back into our slides because we've got lots to do. So thanks for playing along and sticking with me here. It's always good to practice while you have the time. So classroom ideas, let's start with just the photo tool, what you just used. So you can start really simple as a teacher. If you want to take a day or two to kind of, really understand the flow of what you're doing. I know some teachers like to do that. You can go ahead and just, maybe you're taking a picture of a student that's doing a science experiment in the class. So this was actually the first day of kindergarten in my classroom. I took a photo of this little guy and added it to his Seesaw portfolio. And then the parent had access to that because they were connected to our Seesaw class. So that right away from day one of school, they could have conversations like, what was happening? What did you learn? What were you figuring out in this photo? And then it's really easy to get started with students. So stage one for students, I think of my kindergarten classroom, and I know a lot of you are working with younger students. We use tons of manipulatives and materials for hands-on learning. So here's a good example of how we started incorporating Seesaw into what we were already doing in our classroom. In the center here, you'll notice students were learning about patterns. So off they went. I said, show me what you know about patterns. What can you create? So this student created this pattern with various cubes. You can see it's pretty complex. He took a photo of it and added it to Seesaw. He didn't do anything else, just like you took your first photo. Me as a teacher, I get that. I can see all of my students' responses. I have a great idea of what they understood from that lesson, maybe next steps to take. On the left here, you'll notice a photo from students showing me what they knew about symmetry. So again, they were available to have that choice in terms of what materials they were using, how did they want to show me what they knew about symmetry. And then what I found too is it opens up the opportunities for them to really show me the extent of what they really understand, instead of maybe filling out something that, the response would always be the same for every student. So then what students can do is, if they, want to progress a little bit, they can take a photo, and then immediately after taking the photo, under the photo, they can tap the drawing tool and draw on top of the photo. So here are a couple of examples of that. So on the left here, you'll see we were growing crystal gardens in my classroom. So students took a picture each day and just noted what was happening that day in the growth of the crystal gardens. In the center, they're showing a math concept. So this was, I think, a first or second grade class that was learning about parallel lines. So what better opportunity than to walk around in your school or maybe outside on the playground and actually find parallel lines and then draw to illustrate where they are. On the right, this is a student just circling what they knew, kind of a quick assessment check. Students can also use the photo tool and then the microphone to add their voice to photos. And this is hands down was my students' favorite ways to get started with Seesaw. So just a simple thing, if you're doing writer's workshop in your classroom, after you finish writer's workshop, students, as they finish, can come grab, your device in your classroom. They go back themselves, they take a photo of their writing, and then they can record their reading.
I am great at art.
There's so many reasons I love this. Number one, we know what they've written, right? Because they're reading it. Number two, they can look back and hear and see what they've written, because a lot of times they're not deciphering what they've done. And of course, we have a lot of students that are pre-writers and readers if you're working in maybe a preschool or kindergarten classroom. And it's just such a great way to document their growth and also practice that oral fluency as well. So here's just another example. When you get the slides, you can peek in on this. This was a science reflection. We had a fish unit, and they were actually, doing an art project, learning about fish as kind of their, final presentation of what they knew. And then students just took a photo and added their voice to reflect about what they had learned. Students can also do multiple layers on top of a photo. So maybe they're going to draw and add voice at the same time. So this student is explaining a math concept. Let's listen to this one.
This is a group of 16, and I figured out 16 is an even number because there is 8 groups of 2, and none left over. I can also do an addition sentence. 8 plus 8 equals 16.
Okay, so you can see here, this is 25 seconds, right? So he's taken a picture of his math manipulatives. He's explaining his understanding. I'm getting tons of information from the student about their understanding of this concept. And what's great is, typically pre-Seesaw, I say, before Seesaw, I would be going around the room trying to touch base with students, trying to check in to see what they're doing, see what they're taking away from the lesson. And maybe you can get to 5 students or 6 students, but there's a lot of students you're not able to hear what are they actually taking away. And Seesaw is a great way to kind of put yourself in multiple spots, right? We've always wanted to clone ourselves. So another example of using Seesaw takes place if you do literacy stations in your class. Let me see, my slides are a little wonky here. If you do literacy stations or anything like guided reading or daily 5 in your classroom, and you're working with a small group of students, maybe in a small group at a table, and then the rest of your class is often about, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, right? This is an example of using Seesaw at literacy stations to help students document their work, give a little bit of level of accountability, and build in some more reflection with what they're doing. So this student was at our word workstation. They're using their sight word bag, and they have drawn a tree map sorting the words, and they are now just quickly going to show me explain their sort.
These are the words that have T in them. To, that's, what, and the.
Okay, so again, as a teacher, I'm like, okay, we're gonna revisit went. What is our next step there? But again, this was 9 seconds that the student took to record that, gives me tons of information, also gives him an opportunity to share and reflect for a moment. So what I noticed when I started using Seesaw too was that I was continually learning from my students all of the time. At the time I started using Seesaw, I had been teaching 13 years. So I thought, I got this down. I know where everyone's at in my class. But wow, I didn't realize all the things that I was missing. So here are just some more examples. And again, when you get the slides, I encourage you to look through all of these examples, all of these links, and listen to them. But quick things like in the center here, a math exit ticket. So if you want to get a quick, what did all of my students in my class take away from this lesson, have them add it to Seesaw really quickly. If you're doing an assessment check, like say with sight words, for example, here on the left, I think we've all done this where we're working with one student at a time and, come read this list of words to me, or come count to me, or show me this. And, the rest of our class is often about, and it's a lot of time you're taking to do that. What if your students take a picture of the sight word list and then they themselves go off and record?
I can read this week's sight words. There, about, explain, school, were, because, able, between, different, couldn't.
So again, it's just a shift for the student too. They take much more ownership when they're saying, I can show you what I know. And it's saving a tremendous amount of instructional time in your class with, you're able to gain these insights without having to, sit down with students one-on-one. Of course, you can still continue to do that. Again, take a peek at all these other examples. They're just quick examples to kind of get your ideas flowing. I always did a lot of goal setting with my students too. So this is a first grader that at the beginning of the year, they did self-portraits. They just drew them. But then they took a picture in Seesaw and recorded their goal.
This is my self-portrait. When I'm looking most forward to in 4th grade is learning more math and animals because they move fast.
Okay, so this goes on for a little bit, but what I love about this, number one, it's giving them the opportunity to actually reflect and verbalize what their goal is. They can come back to it later. I have had so many examples of students saying, I knew how to do that all year long. And it's like, well, actually, no. Now they can go back and listen. Whoops, let's see. I've now clicked a weird button, but let's keep cruising. So we're gonna get ready to play again. So grab your device and we're gonna practice with photo and voice this time. So again, tap that green add button in the upper right-hand corner. You are gonna tap photo and take a photo of something you love. And if you don't have something you love close by, maybe it's your water bottle or a pencil on the desk. But then tap the mic right after you take the photo and tell us why this object is important to you. And then tapping the green check will add that to our Seesaw class today. So I want you to take time and give this a try. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Again, you can keep playing and playing as much as you would like. Awesome. We still have people with us here today adding posts. You guys are amazing. So I'm going to review these posts. Again, if this were my real classroom, I would be pushing play right here to hear the audio recordings of everything those students have added. Oh, that looks yummy. So I can approve these again one at a time. Again, this little triangle lets you know that there's audio connected with that. I can also approve all. Of course, I would not do that in my Seesaw real class unless I'd seen all the student work, but let's keep cruising. Let's talk about another tool, the drawing tool. So I love the drawing tool because you can start with a blank slate, just very much like a whiteboard if you want. But we also have great tools embedded in the drawing tool as well. You can add labels, you can record voice if you're using iOS devices or even Android devices. You can also record voice on the web, but it's just not within the drawing tool. So here's a couple of examples. This one is actually a student, my son actually, who was doing a little bit of homework at home.
You can see the lines that I've drawn are not parallel. Let me show you a line of parallel lines. T and S and Q and R are parallel, because they'll never meet.
So this was a real struggle at my home. But for him to be able to take a photo of the worksheet that he was doing and use the different colors to really visualize and see the parallel lines was a huge help to him. Another thing that I did all the time in my kindergarten classroom, again, a little bit related to assessment, and this is nothing fancy, but it is somewhat earth-shattering in terms of accounting assessment. So, you know, we've got 24 kindergartners. I need to listen to all of them count by fives for me. So I had 5 iPads and I brought 5 kids over. I said, you know, draw 5 for me and then go over to our recording spots. I had 5 recording spots in our classroom, 1 in each corner of the room and then in one other location, but then they recorded themselves counting by fives.
I can count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40.
Okay, so again, not anything completely like, wow, I can't believe you did that. But it's great because I have this documented. I can share it with families. The student can listen to themselves. They can, you know, go back and reflect to see how they were doing counting. And it's I'm getting 5 done in a time rather than doing it one-on-one as well. So again, just a little bit of time saving, which I think we all appreciate. Labels. So labels are really fun in the drawing tool as well. You can create all these different labels. So if you're doing something like a word sort, check out that example later. If you want to add labels to a picture, you can do that as well. This slide has all sorts of classroom examples that you can check out when you get the slides emailed to you. So there's things from, you know, an example with patterns, proving a response to a text after guided reading, so you can check that out. All sorts of other ideas to kind of get your brain going with what could you do with Seesaw. So I want to introduce your new friend, Activities, which is a component of Seesaw. It is not yet available on Android devices yet, so stay tuned for that. We are still building it. But with Activities, teachers can browse Seesaw's activity library. They can choose an activity and share it with their students. Students can respond using Seesaw's tools. Teachers approve all of those responses, of course. And again, families can see their child's work and those conversations grow. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into our class. I'm going to show you where you find all of this here. If I tap on this Activities tab, I will see a button that says Activity Library. And because this is a kindergarten class, it's already defaulted to that. I could change it to 2nd grade and we could peek at the activities there. I could change it to 1st grade. Now, this is not by any means an exhaustive list of activities. It's just to get you started. So let's do this goal activity right here. This looks great. I could play the audio instructions. Draw a picture of a goal, okay, which is great for our young learners. I'm going to view this. This looks good. I think I want to share it with everyone in our class. You'll notice here that it also has a template attached. You don't have to do that, but you'll see in a moment when you do this activity, what it does for you when you go to that activity tab. So students are going to respond, and then of course I approve them. So right now you can tap on this activities tab in our class, and then you will just tap this green add button, read the directions for the activity, and then submit your response, and then we will check them out in our Seesaw class. So I'm just going to give you a minute to play around with that. Okay, now if you haven't had enough time, keep playing and continue to play. I hope you do. I was popping in the class here while you were working. Again, I'm back in as a teacher. On the right-hand side, you can see that because it says the name of the class and underneath it says teacher. I am gonna go to review right now. And when I see these responses coming in, I notice this gray bar at the top. That means it's associated with an activity that I shared. So I'm actually going to click on that gray bar. And what I love is that if this was a typical class, of course, you would have every student's name showing here. And you would be able to see which students have responded, which students haven't. You can also see, you can get a really quick glimpse of what they're able to do or what they're submitting to you. So I can approve right here in this section, or I can go back to the feed like I was approving before. But you can see people are continuing to add their responses in. If I want to look at the actual response, I could click on it and approve it like that as well. So activities also, I'm just going to show you quick. If you go to the green, I'm going to show you this quickly because it's an important difference between a student and a teacher. You have been a student, but I have been a teacher in this class. So when I tap the green add button, I actually have more options of what to do. If I want to get to the tools that you have been seeing right from the green add button, I would go to post to student journal, and that's going to open the same tools you've been seeing. If I tap the green add button and I want to share an activity, I can tap right there and it's going to take me right into the activity library. I can also go to the upper right and create a brand new activity from scratch, completely whatever you want to create. We have a whole webinar to explore that with you as well. But let's keep cruising. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I am ready to get started, which I hope you're feeling that way, if you go to ideas.seesaw.me, we have amazing getting started guides for every single grade level. And there's a checklist in there, and there's what is called the Seesaw Student Challenge. And really, it's a series of little mini lessons. Some take 3 minutes, some take 5 minutes of how to get started with Seesaw. It really goes step by step, so check that out. Also, just a public service announcement. I shared our class QR code today because this is a global class. I wanted everyone in the world to have access to it. Do not ever share your own personal QR code class with anyone, or your QR code. Don't post it on social media. Don't get super excited that your students are finally using Seesaw and you take a picture of your students scanning the class QR code. Don't do that because they could scan your code and then they are in your class. So I actually always put a Post-it note over my QR code poster when it was hanging up in my classroom, just so I wouldn't inadvertently take a picture of it. All right, if you're thinking like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, I would love every teacher in my school to use Seesaw, we have a product called Seesaw for Schools, which builds a comprehensive record of student learning that travels with students from year to year. It also has additional features, one of them called Skills View, which allows you to really track a student's progress towards specific skills or standards in your class. So all that great work that's coming into Seesaw, you can say, oh, this is related to this patterning skill and tag it with that skill. You'll also, as an administrator, have a dashboard where you can really see some great insights about parent engagement, feedback, things like that. So more information is on our website, so you can check that out. And I want to let you know too that if you're ready to take the next step, because this is just part one, you can just get going with Seesaw right now. I'm sure you can handle it. Or you can actually, when you get the slides, click on this slide and it will take you to Brand New to Seesaw Part 2. And we'll actually talk about creating your class settings, inviting families, and all sorts of stuff. So make sure you check that out. We are really serious about privacy here at Seesaw, and we're really transparent about all of our privacy practices. So make sure you check out our privacy center. That is linked to this slide as well. Lots of easy to read, easy to understand principles about privacy, which we hold a very high regard to. If you are not yet connected with teachers that are using Seesaw, we have some great outlets for you to check out. So if you go to Seesaw Teachers on Facebook, there are thousands of teachers that are sharing ideas every day. You can join Seesaw, follow us on Twitter. We have a Seesaw chat. And of course, we have more PD and PJ's webinars as well. So check out all of those resources as well.